What's something that you've done while horny and you regret it? Story 1. When I was young, I would ride this huge stuffed bear like a horse. Came out the shower and jumped on it naked, and it tickled my nuts so good I just came all over the bear. My first ever nut, I would rush home from school to tickle my balls and just nut and nut and nut on this stuffed bear until one day it disappears. So I start humping my pillows the same way and nutting on my pillows, then sleeping on them like an animal. My brother walks in one day, shows me an erotic mag, then takes me to the computer and shows me an erotic video. He goes, "Notice how they clean up after?" Among other completely uncensored and straightforward talk. Years later, we are all drunk at my parents' for New Year's. And my brother brings it up. "Hey, remember when you would have stuffed animals in pillows?" I'm like, "You guys knew?" And they tell me how I would just leave the door open, and they have seen me just clapping bear and pillow cheeks. Not to mention the massive amount of sea stains on black stuffed animal fur, and how they would all laugh until my brother decided to give me the talk, so my dumbass could figure out that stroking my D was the proper way to masturbate and not tickled my little boy balls until completion. Sometimes I still think about it, and it makes me shudder in embarrassment. Story 2. Me and my friend were supposed to take a visiting foreign professor for drinks. After a couple of beers, they guy told us that he wanted to see some women. We took him to a soft-core strip club. After the first beer, the guy said that he wanted something more extreme. Prostitution is legal in my country, and we took the guy to probably the largest bar with workers of our city. It was a bizarre place, and after a few minutes, our reputable visiting academic sealed the deal with a lady. The guy went with the lady to her room and came back after about 15 minutes. Suddenly, the guy said that he was tired and wanted to head back to his hotel. On the ride back, the guy started weeping and telling us about his family and giving us advice about why we should love and respect our partners. I had never seen so much post-nut regret in my life. Story 3. I took a bus from New Jersey to Ottawa with very little planning. I'd only spoken to this person for a week. I even went out of my way to buy a passport to do this. Keep in mind I was about 18. The trip going up wasn't that bad, but going back was a nightmare. Thankfully, the person was real and I wasn't murdered. The however, wasn't worth it, and it definitely wasn't worth the headache of trying to get back home. The problem was that I had gotten a bed and breakfast in Ottawa with very limited public transportation around me. I was probably closer to Carp than Ottawa, so when it came time to leave, I didn't have anyone to drive me to the bus station. I had taken a cab from the bus station in Ottawa to the bed and breakfast. There weren't any cabs available, and the person that I had hooked up with had left. So I had the owners of the bed and breakfast drive me to the bus station. Unfortunately, I arrived an hour late, thus causing me to be stuck in Montreal for over 8 hours waiting for a bus to bring me to NYC. The person at the bus station told me that the next bus will drop me off in NYC at 3 a.m. and that there wouldn't be a bus to bring mine to Jersey for 4 hours after I got off. I told them that I would take the risk because at that point, all I wanted to do was to get back to home. After arriving in NYC, I scrambled to find a way back and decided on taking a train from NYC to Philadelphia and then to Jersey. Altogether, it took me longer to get home than it did going to Canada. Story 4. Stupidly traded nudes with a guy I met online. He kept trying to get me to meet up for and I refused. One day he told me he found me on Facebook, and if I didn't meet up with him, he would send all my nudes to everyone on my Facebook friends list. So me young and terrified, I meet up with him for He lets me delete all the photos of me from his phone. After I leave, I get a text from his wife saying she found my number on his phone and wanted to know if we had had I told her the story and that I literally just left and of course had no idea he was married and that he blackmailed me. She apologized for what he had done, saying it's not the first girl he's done it to. Still feel dirty and a shy ton of guilt after that years later. Story 5. I was 22 and left a bar with a 42-year-old cougar. If that was the bulk of the detail, then no big deal. But when we got back to her place, her maybe 15-year-old son was playing Call of Duty in the living room. Tiny apartment. I probably should have noped out at that point. About 15 minutes later, he went to bed. And about 30 minutes later, his mom and I were banging on the couch. We did all sorts of stuff, and I'm still ashamed. The next morning, we went out to her car, and her battery was dead. She left her headlights on. Yeah, she drove us drunk. The night before. She was going to be my ride home. At this point, I am excruciatingly hungover, and my phone has the thinnest little red line of battery life. I text a buddy telling him where I am and to please come pick me up with my car. Phone dies. I'm looking at this lady, wondering WTF I'm doing with my life, and I guess the best idea we had was get a margarita at this Thai Americanized Mexican food joint. It was 10 a.m. I sat there in the outside dining area with this woman, smoking a cigarette and staring into my slushy shame, wondering how many times her poor kid has seen her mom bring home some random college dude. We finished the margaritas and left the restaurant. As I walked out into the parking lot, now warming in the late morning sun, hangover getting ready to destroy me, I see my car pull into the lot with my buddy behind the wheel, with a shosh-eating grin on his face. I hugged the lady, thanked her, with no exchange of numbers, and noped like I should have 9 hours earlier. Story 6. I once got a little too enthusiastic with an eggplant emoji-shaped vibrator and nearly got it stuck inside my backdoor cavity. I really didn't want to explain to anyone why I needed to go to a hospital, so I actually managed to get it out myself, but only because I already knew that if I panicked, I'd make things worse. Don't worry, I would have gone to the ER if it went any further than my fingers could reach. Here's a bit of advice for all. If you put anything up your butt, please buy it from a S store that has instructions and ways to prevent having something get stuck. Look up safe ways to enjoy having things up your butt because you could really hurt yourself. You could avoid a very embarrassing and expensive trip to S Hospital. Story 7. Was Aishi at bar ran into the hot girl from high school. She was still hot. We hit it off, had fun for the night, gave her a ride home. I was super horny and thought this was going to be amazing. She did not invite me inside, so I just went home sad but still horny, so proceeded to pull on the old C dispenser. Had a great time, felt way better. As I was cleaning up, she calls me and wants me to come over because she is lonely. I think, hey, I might still have some spunk left in my junk. I head over, we start getting frisky, and I cannot make the soldier stand to attention. She crying, thinking it's her fault. I tell her what happened and we try again. Still can't get it to wake up. Between the alcohol and my balls empty, he was just a limp noodle. She asked me to leave and felt like a pile of shit. Never did hear from her again. Story 8. Chick came over to my apartment with my cousin for my cousin's 19th. I was 20 at the time. Totally intended on letting them and my roommates have a jolly good time while I sat, drank, and played some Skyrim. There must have been something sigh about my gaming skills BC before I knew it. My cousin's friend was throwing down serious moves. Like, ooh, I like this video game. Show me some cool stuff kind of moves. Me, being young, horny, drunk, and kind of high, crunk as they said back in the day, had no intention of letting this opportunity pass. So the night ended with my cousin passed out in my bed and her friend and I doing the dirty on my floor. 2 weeks pass. Being perpetually horny, I broke the rule of hookups and decided to meet with this chick again. Was a wild time, ended up with a great story and some wicked claw marks on my back. She was crazy, but also a blue ribbon national horse show champ, so that's kinda neat. Anyway, the regret set in after the SN when I noticed blood on the sheets. Me, being a gentleman, assured her that I was not grossed out by blood periods BC. I worked in healthcare and saw that shit daily. To which she responded, oh, I'm not on my period, I might just have HPV, so that happens sometimes. Cue regret. At this point, you may be thinking, oh, but if you wore protection, you're fine, which I did for the first round. It was the second and third round that I didn't, and that children is how I got HPV. Story 9. This happened when I was like 19. Just got broken up with, was working late, and the IT guy who I had a slight crush on was at my desk just shooting the SH with me. I told him about my recent breakup. He called my ex an idiot, complimented me, made me feel great, and next thing I know, he's behind me railing me out on the desk. He had a long-term girlfriend, so I felt terrible afterwards, and we were really awkward around each other after that. I quit about 2 months later, and he moved to a different office because his GF didn't like that. He worked around mainly women. She was right to be worried. Story 10. Jacked off in the shower while laying down in the tub, shower water raining down from above. It was very nice and ended nicely. Later that day, I went to take a shit. She wouldn't come out, and I felt an odd tugging sensation between my ass cheeks. Thought I was dying and started freaking out while I tried to pinch my shesh off to investigate. Turns out, my jizz had found its way into my ass cheeks while laying down in the tub, mingled with all my ass hair, and solidified into a gelatinous plaster. Upon sting, the hair was so fed together that my cheeks couldn't separate for the etch to emerge. Felt like that Play-Doh hair salon toy. I ended up having such a massacre of SHC on my ass and hands that I had to get back in the shower just to clean off. Story 11. Meticulously cleaned my entire parents' house while I still lived with them. Took hours to shave every from hair off of my body, and lost weight to fit into an overpriced lingerie set. This guy I was talking to said he was going to come over and rock my world. Literally, the day of, as I was sitting there on my bed massaging my legs with lotion to stop the burning from using Nair, he calls me, drunk as to gloat about how he met this girl that let him put it in her butt. They were still going at it while he was talking to me on speakerphone. I just hung up and cried from frustration. They dated for 3 weeks before they broke up because he stole money from her, so I guess I dodged a bullet, so there's that at least. LMAO. I was 17 and stupid. Story 12. There's been several. Worst was when I had a three-way where one of the girls was really hot and the other both looked and behaved hideously, terrible personality, but it was the only way to get the hot girl. Spent the first 40 minutes focusing on the hot one while the other girl kept trying weird yish, and I just couldn't see. Hot girl CS, then leaves and goes downstairs. So here's me facing down the biggest turnoff of my life with a raging boner. I was so horny and drunk I fed the her anyway. Eventually nutted. She wouldn't leave me alone after that for a long time. Anytime I tried to invite the hot one over, she would bring her friend, which resulted in doing the exact same thing 3 times. Just didn't learn my lesson. I always felt so dirty afterwards. Story 13. 12 years ago, I worked at the best company. The hours were wild, and we had a lot of tight deadlines and often worked 16 plus hours a day and often whole nights just to meet deadlines. But as we worked hard, we surely partied hard AF. It's almost like Wolf of Wall Street movie. Twice a year we had a company outing. Our CEO would book a bar or a private venue at the beach, or just whole damn yacht and thing were just getting wild. The company was mid-size, 100 plus employees. And we all were the coolest, friendliest colleagues in the world. Funny thing, at every event, we would start very chill, laid back, but as the night goes on, people getting drunk and high, I would often find myself with girls from another department at various places. What I regret is during one of those long-ass hours at work, I slept with my coworker right on the couch in one of the meeting rooms. Our cubicles were right next to each other, and it was awkward AF. So after one that time, she caught feelings, and we just couldn't work together. It was torture. She later quit after 4 months. We were such great friends, but that one time just killed it. I really miss her as a friend. I worked at the company for 4 years. One time they hired stupid ass boomer religious lady who sued the company for the way they do business. Fun had stopped, people started quitting. Couple years later, the company shut down. Best working experience of my life. Story 14. Asked 2 of my close friends who were dating at the time if they wanted a threesome. They both agreed, but it came with problems. Both me and the other guy were bi. Basically, he wanted it to be where me and him could do anything, but me and her could do nothing, which isn't a threesome. Basically, he wanted to F me while his GF knew about it. He never fed me, but because I was horny and his GF was horny, we both would do stuff since he was controlling. Because of this, she cheated on him with me and 2 other guys. Now she's out of that relationship, and she's treating the one she's in now very seriously. But that's by far what I regret the most. I completely lost the guy as a friend, and me and the girl's friendship is not the same anymore. Story 15. Back in 2017, I had a girlfriend who was kinky as shit. I won't get into it all, but this specific time, I had been with her and her family, mom and sister, to Disneyland, California. We were together for almost a year at that point. Halfway through Pirates of the Caribbean, she slipped me a remote. I knew exactly what it was for and quickly hid it in my jacket pocket, while simultaneously turning it on, being careful to turn it off when it got quieter or when she'd squeeze my leg. Next ride we went on was Haunted Mansion. We were alone for this one. So I kept it on the whole time, hearing her moans until she turned to me and whispered, "I'm coming," with a little twitch in her body. It was hot as F. We go back to the hotel that night. She falls asleep in my bed. It made me very uncomfortable because her mom and sister were in the other room sleeping, and right before her mom literally said she didn't want us sleeping together. So I stayed up for a while, doing random things. I thought it would be cute to take a bunch of selfies on her phone, so I opened her Snapchat and selfie mode activated. As I was taking pictures, I got a notification from someone. Swiped away, another notification, swiped away, another one, all from the same name. Okay, fine, I'm a terrible human for clicking on her messages, I get it, but if I hadn't, she probably would have kept cheating and I would have never known. Here's the part that I regret. The next day, I didn't want to ruin the trip for her sister or mom, so I pretended to see nothing and go about the trip trying my damn hardest to not raise suspicion. which included more sulaks, like she wanted me to finger her this time instead of using her vibrator. She brought an extra jacket to put over our lap. After feeling her C on my hands twice, I was beginning to feel horny, but I was also very turned off. It was confusing. I let her give me a hand job because of that, and I remember starting to cry as I started to see. Story 16. I was with my dad and his friend on a trip to a preacher's conference one year when I was a young teen and decided to beat it while I was in the shower. I didn't bring anything useful, and we all know that water is an awful lube, so I dug through their stuff and found a nice cream that should work. Icy hot, it said. Okay, why not? I tried a small bit on my Linus, and it felt nice and cool. Now, mind you, I'm in a very warm shower, and my pores are wide open. So I lather my thing all the way up with that and start going to town till it starts getting warm. By this time, I've realized I've made a terrible mistake, but I already feel like it's been set on fire by a damn flamethrower. Another bad part of it was that I was sharing the motel with my dad and his friend, so I had to keep my screams muffled while I tried rinsing my poor, abused member off. Story 17. So my old friend was someone my roommate and I had met a few years previous to this incident visiting San Francisco. At that time, he presented as a straight dude. I was always so attracted to him, but pretty much gave up any hope of getting any kind of attention besides friendship. Oh yeah, I'm a gay male if that matters. If you don't like that, stop reading. Anywho, a few years pass, and I end up moving to Oakland, CA. I didn't really know many people, so I decided to reach out to him on Facebook and see if he still lives in San Francisco. To my surprise, he does. He's not only still smoking hot, he came out as gay. I was like, this is my chance. So I message him, we get to talking. Conversation moves into us both being thirsty. We plan to meet the next afternoon. Really common banter. Totally innocuous. We are chilling at this bar, having some beers and pizza, really hitting it off. I'm DTF at this point, so I agree to coming home with him. He asked if I wanted to get spun. I had tried it before, but by no means was I a pro. I'm finglet, has finglet. We had crazy S for like 3 hours, and I'm not kidding, I thought I fell in love with him. This is where it starts to get dark. He asks if I want to go hang out with a friend of his in the Tenderloin. I'm like, hell yeah. We get there, and it's a travel lodge and shady AF. Guys posted up outside just overall, not a place you would think to hang out with a friend. Getting anxious, but blame it on the drugs. We go into this motel room and him and his friend pull out rigs and are saying they are gonna slam. I'm like, oh, okay. They try and get me to, and I refuse. This goes on and gets worse the more fed up they get. I'm wanting to leave, but finding it more and more difficult to find a way out of the situation I'm in. I let them know that I'm gonna go, and they are like, no, stay, you gotta stay. His friend blocks the door nonchalantly and is heating up water in a coffee pot. He said he wanted to make ramen because I looked like I needed to eat something. He told me you working boys need to eat it. Can't be just drugs. I'm like, I'm not hungry and I'm no working boy. The guy I came with grabs me and throws me on the bed, pins me down on my stomach, and his friend then sets up a rig and slams my left butt cheek with it. From there on, it just seemed like time didn't exist. Both of them raped me repeatedly. I was trapped with one of them always there, either to fed up to care or not fed up enough to want to be alive. I was injected IDKA how many times over those months and used by IDK how many random men. Disgusting, horrible men that wanted everything you can think of. If I didn't comply, I was abused. If I did comply, I was abused. I just remember laying there wanting to die, wanting to just like odd or something, or for them to just kill me. I begged the men that were abusing me to help me, to let me go, to no avail. Then my break came. One of the guys was out scoring with the money I was making them. The other dude went to the bathroom and took his setup. He ends up shooting up and something went wrong. He quickly starts coughing and convulsing, falls off the toilet and has a seizure or stroke IDK. I knew I had to do whatever I could to get out before the other guy came back. I jump up, run to the door, and struggle with the locks. Finally get it open. I have no idea what time it is, what day it is. It's dark as F outside. The parking lot is just as sketchy as I remembered. I'm running down the parking lot and see a car pull in with the Uber Lyft symbol logo light thing that some have. I probably scared this dude to death. I'm crumbling and falling apart, screaming for him to let me in the car and help me. He unlocks the doors and lets me in. I tell him I need to go to the hospital. I've been held against my will, and I need you to go now before they come get me. We pull out of the parking lot. I'm filled with this unreal wash of relief. I'm sobbing, just straight up wailing. My body is so wrecked I feel like an empty shell. I pass out and wake up at the hospital. It still is so painful to think about these things, and some details are impossible to talk about. I have been diagnosed with PTSD and find it difficult to be intimate with others. I smell all of the smells of that motel room randomly. I'll get whiffs of burning drugs and think he's in my house stalking me. These are all manifestations of my anxiety, but it's so real sometimes I spiral out of control. I had to deal with withdrawal symptoms while also being told of STDs that I now carry for life. The rage I feel is so intense some days that I could light myself on fire. I battle with feeling guilty like this was my fault. If I would have just never messaged this guy, I'd be a different person today. With therapy and a strong support system, I have more good days than bad now. I'm actually engaged now, soon to be married to the most beautiful human being I have ever met. I thought I would never feel love or want to have anyone touch me again, but he's been able to show me that I deserve it, that I'm not some dumb trick worth nothing more than a hole for some John and a quick $50. I still have a long way to go in my mental health journey and recovery, but I see my future for the first time in a long time, and it feels good to know that I'm loved and valued. If anyone else is struggling with issues like this, you're not alone. There's always an option, and don't give up. You're so worth it. Your life is so worth it. It will get better. Story 18. When I was in the Navy and single, I had sex with someone I later found out was trying to get pregnant to avoid deployment orders. Now, this isn't all that uncommon in the Navy, but I was young and, well, see the title. One day, while taking a piss, I noticed some blood in my urine. She'd given me chlamydia. Now, for all you hard chargers out there, I get it. That's wimp stuff. Try surviving syphilis. You've made your point. Fast forward. Let's say about 9 months. I'm due to transfer, and I never confronted her about the chlamydia thing. The medical department reached out to her. Through some contact tracing, they did find who gave it to her. I only know this because she approached me to say so in her 3rd trimester. I asked if she wanted to have me submit for a paternity test. She said it wasn't mine, and that her pregnancy had made her rethink her values. She'd originally intended to sucker me into thinking it was mine, but then Jesus or whatever. Baby daddy was chlamydia man. Story 19. I was seeing this guy and was really attracted to him. Once he stayed over for the night right during the days of the month when I'm the horniest. I was excited to get some, but as it turned out, he just wanted to get to know me better because I was such an interesting person. Everything he did just turned me on further. I couldn't help and excuse myself to the bathroom and got to work. It took me a little more time than just peeing, so he knocked on the door, and for some reason I got startled so bad that I fell in a way that my hand landed in the toilet. With all the noise, he got concerned and let himself in. Now, imagine this. All the times that you've seen a girl naked were in lingerie, fully prepared to do it. This time he gets in the bathroom with my undies till stuck in my knees, my bra on my elbows, and one of my hands and some of my hair in the toilet. And yes, I peed before all of this happened and hadn't flushed yet. The story 20. When I was in high school, I was dating the only other out lesbian in school. We fooled around a lot, lots of fingering, but nothing more. One day I went over to her house and she wasn't up for anything, didn't even want to cuddle. After talking for a while, she had 2 admissions I wasn't ready for. She told me she'd been having lots of thoughts about guys and she thought she might be bi. I told her that's fine, but if she wanted to do anything, we would have to break up. She told me she didn't want to lose me, so she tried something alone. First thing I thought was dildo, banana, cuckbur, etc. No, plunger. She had one of those clear plungers with the pretty much anal beads on the handle. So while taking a shower, she stuck it to the shower floor and started fing it, riding up and down pretty hard. Right when she came, her foot slipped and she fell, impaling herself on the plunger. She had to have internal stitching to repair a complete perineal tear. Story 21. Was living in Spain for about 2 years, and there was this beautiful girl from Sevilla I was trying to get with. So me and my best friend, whom I was living there with, were going to the club with them here and there to work my way in. So one night I got more drunk than usual, and apparently one of her friends, let's just say the one I was definitely not into, noticed and made her move. Now, due to the abnormal percentage of alcohol in my blood in combination with the fact that I had endured a prolonged dry season while chasing the aforementioned beauty, I decided F it and went with it. Now we get back to the apartment and I'm ready to get this nut thrown out and shake the onions at it. But as we start, I realize she's a virgin, and not wanting to spoil her first experience, I continued and concluded, not even knowing what her name was. Had a pretty awkward morning after when reality set in, but at least I found her name, as it was the last number I'd saved in my phone book. Phew. We go out with the same group, the same evening, and I finally get my shot at the girl I was chasing. So in front of the first one, I hooked up with her pretty violently, as we'd both apparently had a thing for each other, which is all fine and dandy, except for the fact that her friend was present, witnessed the whole thing, got blackout drunk, fell on the stairs and hit her head in a seeming attempt to drown her sorrows as she'd just given her virginity to the guy that dumped her for someone else and left her hanging and ended up in an ambulance. I had an amazing relationship with my crush, but to this day, 10 years later, I'm still haunted by the fact that I not only took her virginity, but scarred her for life because of a momentary lapse in judgment and misplaced horniness. Despite everything that has happened in my life since, getting married and having kids, this particular episode still haunts my dreams, because Noon deserves that. Writing this while tipsy as that is the only way I'd ever share this story. So excuse any grammar/spelling related issues. English is not exactly my first language. This'll probably get buried in the rest of the comments, but if you made it this far, thank you anywho. Story 22. I ended up sleeping with my closest female friend, and it destroyed everything we had. It was ultimately her idea, and it took her hours to convince me, but I take equal responsibility agreeing to it knowing the risks. If anyone cares for the story, we were both servers at a restaurant and became very close. She had a boyfriend and I was freshly out of a relationship when I met her and wasn't really trying to date. I genuinely adored her. Just being around her, talking to her, she was very funny, and we just made each other laugh all the time, which is important at a high-stress job like we had. COVID hit and our restaurant closed down in March, and although her and I would text frequently, I didn't see her for months. In July, we started meeting up occasionally and getting coffee, went to a winery with another coworker of ours. It was fun. Her and her boyfriend broke up around this time, but they were on and off constantly, and I genuinely wasn't trying to date this girl despite what most people would typically think about a guy being friends with a girl. I've had many female friends in my life that I was near interested in. Some people just aren't capable of that sort of thing, I suppose. Anyway, one night her and I were drinking. She progressively gets more flirty, which is fine because we would always jokingly flirt a little bit. We go back to my place and the flirting gets more intense. She's trying to dance on me. She tries to kiss me, and I gently turn her down saying, I don't want to ruin our friendship. She starts to feel embarrassed because she had never been turned down before, but I just reinforce, I think she's attractive, but I just want to be friends. Now I will not hesitate to admit she was insanely hot, but at some point in knowing her, I sort of made that decision to essentially friend zone her because she was funny and great to be around, and we had lots of deep conversations. But her relationship with her BF was a mess, and I wasn't trying to get tangled up in that. Anyway, eventually she's puking in my shower, drunk. So I get in there to help take care of her. I keep my underwear on while she's naked because I'm just trying to reinforce that and I'm trying to help her and not bone. But within an hour from there, I finally caved and was like, F it, man, have some fun. What's the worst that can happen? It was great for about a month. We hung out probably 3-4 days a week, not always hooking up. Sometimes we would just talk for hours on end, but she started feeling things for me while she still felt things for her ex. And I reinforced that I was just there for whatever, and that I wouldn't care if she went back with her ex. I just wanted to be friends. We both suffered from anxiety. Hers was far worse than mine, and I think it became too much for her to handle. So it's been about 3 months and we haven't talked, and I don't know if we ever will again. She wasn't perfect. She had a drinking problem for sure, and some bad habits, but she really did light up a room for me anyway. Story 23. Something weird New York shot. I was at a club and had taken a little Molly. Never smoked, but had an urge and went to the store to buy a pack. Goofy dude claiming to be a rap producer comes up to me with his tall, gorgeous African goddess of a girlfriend standing a bit behind him. He starts shooting the ish and eventually asks me if I liked eating pea. I was in a jolly mood and started clowning on him because he said he didn't eat pea. Then he tells me it's his girlfriend's birthday and he wants to gift her oral S, even though he still had no intention of doing it himself. I laughed at first, but the Molly and a chance at a good story on top of the unbelievable woman made it too hard to pass up. They literally had an Airbnb directly across from the club, like 30 feet away. When he told me he was going to tie her up and be in the room watching, but she couldn't reciprocate, I got cold feet. He then played the rapper card and said he would call a couple of his friends for me. The only problem was they were not so attractive New York S workers. He threw them $100 when they got there. I don't know why I didn't bounce, but I said F it and went to town on that seriously magical P, while the other two went to town on me. I was hard, But I didn't really enjoy it, was too out of my element. Midway through, he tells us all to be quiet because the landlord lived above and he wasn't supposed to have guests. Lowell Lodging is a gross business. Felt really disgusted with myself for a couple of weeks and obviously got tested immediately. Story 24. Many things, but my most recent regret, I got a nifty vibrator, like a really good vibrator. It makes you finish in under 5 minutes and it's just a great time all around. It made me horny all the time. I live with my BF and I love him and having S with him very much, but sometimes I just want a quick finish and this vibrator did that. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, so I just turn up my podcast really loud so as not to rise suspicion and cover up the buzz. All fine and good, except I love true crime podcasts, and so that was clearly the least suspicious noise to come from the other room while I'm doing my fun business. Nice, loud true crime podcasts about detailed murder while I masturbate. Well, I Pavloved myself into getting turned on by dying. I'm a depressed ass bee, and every time I get sad and want to die, I get horny as if thinking about it. Israel Keys, Heart of Flutter, Kemper Docentenary. Murder me, Daddy. I'm so ashamed I don't know how to reverse this. I have overcome my usual fear and anxiety with horny. I can't tell anyone. I have no idea what to do. I can't stay like this. It isn't healthy, and I'm afraid for future me. Story 25. I was in an on and off relationship with a girl that I know 100% cheated on me and gave me an STD, whole other story, after a few different events leading up to this. With the last being the last straw. Her ex-boyfriend, who is an actor with his claim to fame being playing Robin in the Batman stunt show at the regional amusement park. In all honestly looking back, I probably had some jealousy of because that sounds pretty awesome. Not to mention I was a 20-year-old alcoholic dishwasher, I wasn't she, and successful people made me feel uncomfortable. Her ex was back in town when she started acting shady, and come to find out that was because she was up to some shady shade. He was staying with her and her roommates, which wouldn't have been a big deal without the past we had and her lying about it. I dropped off a few things that I had of hers and swore off the whole situation off. Or so I thought. A few weeks or so go by, and I get a message from her asking me to come over and talk. Code for D me, please. Like the emotional train wreck that I was, I accepted her invitation with intimidate regret. I went over there with no idea as to why I didn't want her back. I wasn't surely attracted to her anymore. I suppose the familiarity is what I was looking for. Either way, I had made the bad decision and now it was time to dig in and ride it out. It wasn't anything remarkable, or at least not anything worth recalling, I guess, because I don't remember most of it. Lots of drugs between then and now. But I do remember how I felt after we had said I felt nothing. I felt cold and alone. I decided that I didn't like that anymore, so I left, but not before getting just a little satisfaction on my way out. I was laying there feeling as empty and cold as the universe, her sleeping next to me. I had agreed to stay the night, but after a couple of hours of just staring at the ceiling, I realized I could be at my place self-loathing nothing like hating yourself in the comfort of one's own home, so I decided to leave. I was now in the process of getting dressed, which I wasn't being careful about. I didn't care if I woke her. I'm sure it was preferable to her that I left as well. Since she didn't wake up while I was getting dressed, I decided to make a sandwich. I couldn't tell you why. It was as much a mystery as the reason I went in the first place. I used all the deli meat that I could find in the fridge. There was an absurd amount of meat packed between the last 2 slices of bread. Was no way anyone would make a sandwich like this. I made a place at the kitchen table. I was going to enjoy the moment, really take it in. I wasn't hungry in the least, but I took a bite of the sandwich. I needed nothing more than that. I was satisfied with leaving, but the universe gave me a little parting gift for my troubles. Above the exit door were 3 autographed headshots of her ex, the actor, just staring at me as I sat there with this comically large sandwich, ruining the entire thing, the vibe. He would pay dearly for this trespass against me. It was one of my more petty moments, but I don't care, it felt so goddamn good. I found a stepladder so I could get to eye level with pictures and draw the Mona Lisa of cocks coming out of his mouth on all 3 of the headshots. My arm went numb just as I finished singing my masterpieces. I put the ladder away, washed my hands, and then stopped on my way out to admire my work and really soak at the moment. It may not have been much to anyone except me, but that's all that matters in the long run. I got a pretty good story out of it, and she got to give Robin from the Batman stunt show the clap, win-win in my book. Story 26. While a horny teenager, I went home with a girl that asked me to come to her house after school. Didn't know her well, and she hadn't been at our school long. We walk into her house and her parents, or whoever they were on the couch shooting up heroin. She walks me back to her room and says she wants to give me a job. So she starts doing that, then not more than a couple minutes in, she says we should have S. So we do, but she kept her shirt on. I asked her to take it off so I could see her breasts, which were pretty big for our age, but she refused. Then she just got really quiet after having been pretty vocal. I asked her why she wasn't moaning, if I wasn't doing it right for her, and she just started obviously really bad fake moaning. I literally just pulled my D out of her right there and then and left. I walked back out past her junkie family and out the door back up the street to school to get my car and drove home. I never talked to her again or told anyone else about the encounter. She dropped out of school a week later. Story 27. I got two major FUPs from a number of years ago before I was married. The first was an older woman, about 40 or so, sitting at the bar, impressed that a young 20-something man was ordering scotch rather than a fruity hipster drink. We got to talk, and one thing led to another, and we end taking a cab to her house in the suburbs in early spring. We get down to business, and I notice a few face-down photo frames, but think nothing of it. Maybe 15 minutes later, we hear the front door open, and then I learn her husband was a Marine, and she didn't expect him home for another few days. She threw my clothes under the bed as I jumped out the window where she told me to wait. So I sat in some frosty bushes wearing only a condom for about 30 minutes before she pokes her head out of the master bath and tosses me a garbage bag and says she can't get to my clothes without waking her husband. I try to argue and she slams the window in my face. I started walking home in a garbage bag before a guy picked me up and gave me a ride back to my apartment because he's been there before. I didn't really live at that apartment though. I sort of just used it as a F-pad and had some spare clothes there. So a few months after the last story, I bring a lady back to said apartment. The S was fine, but I had school and work, so I left her in the shower and told her to lock the door on the way out. Not like I kept anything valuable there. Worst case scenario, I lost a microwave. I come back a week later with another girl only to find the last woman was still there. She even stocked the fridge. She greeted me as baby when I walked in with my date. Needless to say, my new lady friend was pissed and left. I tried to kick out crazy squatter chick, but she offered to cook dinner in S. I was drunk and made bad decisions. Told my friend David about her the next day, and he offered to take her off my hands. Story 28. I got two major FUPs from a number of years ago before I was married. The first was an older woman, about 40 or so, sitting at the bar impressed that a young 20-something man was ordering scotch rather than a fruity hipster drink. We got to talk, and one thing led to another, and we end taking a cab to her house in the suburbs in early spring. We get down to business, and I notice a few face-down photo frames, but think nothing of it. Maybe 15 minutes later, we hear the front door open, and then I learn her husband was a Marine, and she didn't expect him home for another few days. She threw my clothes under the bed as I jumped out the window where she told me to wait. So I sat in some frosty bushes wearing only a condom for about 30 minutes before she pokes her head out of the master bath and tosses me a garbage bag and says she can't get to my clothes without waking her husband. I try to argue and she slams the window in my face. I started walking home in a garbage bag before a guy picked me up and gave me a ride back to my apartment because he's been there before. I didn't really live at that apartment though. I sort of just used it as a F-pad and had some spare clothes there. So a few months after the last story, I bring a lady back to said apartment. The S was fine, but I had school and work, so I left her in the shower and told her to lock the door on the way out. Not like I kept anything valuable there. Worst case scenario, I lost a microwave. I come back a week later with another girl, only to find the last woman was still there. She even stocked the fridge. She greeted me as baby when I walked in with my date. Needless to say, my new lady friend was pissed and left. I tried to kick out crazy squatter chick, but she offered to cook dinner in S. I was drunk and made bad decisions. Told my friend David about her the next day and he offered to take her off my hands. Story 29. Mike was a homeless man who knew his way around the streets. You could always go to him for a hit of crack or for something more sensual, more sual, and more romantic even. His gaping mouth may have been toothless and foul, but from it came tender words that would coax my ejaculate from within. "F'me, you nasty little shboy. Make it hurt," he would gently moan. Sometimes I would regret seeing him in the alleyway, because I knew that before the sun came up, I would be the one amming up that darkest of hidden places. In the cardboard box beside the downspout, inside of the dumpster covered with rotting food. While using creamed corn as a lubricant, I would find myself as a man. I'd be touched deep inside, and something would come out. I may regret it, and I regret how Mike died of hepatitis C, but I'll never forget him. Story 30. I was in another city for work and went out for drinks with the company people I'd met earlier in the day. Only thing was, I was late to meet them, and they'd already moved on. So I was finishing my drink at the bar when these two girls noticed me and started chatting me up. I was happy for the company, and we did shots and hung out. One of the girls tells me her friend is single and could really do with hooking up with me. She's not bad looking, not quite my type, but I could definitely F her. So we get more and more drunk, and she invites me back to hers. Only problem is her place is a whole other town away. I tell her I've got a train at 9 a.m. and she could just come back to my hotel. She tells me she's a doctor and has work at 8 a.m. I'm reluctant, but she literally starts wanking me off in the bar, begging me, telling me she'll do this and that. Her friend's just smirking next to us. I'm horny as F at this point, so I'm like, yeah, let's go. We go off to get the last train back to hers. It's like midnight at this point. We're both pretty drunk, but her friend gives me her blessing and parts way. This is where things take a turn. We're on the train and she's getting pretty sleepy. She gets up to go to the toilet. I pull out my phone and realize I've just ran out of battery. Time goes on and I realize the train hasn't moved in a while and she's been gone for like 20 minutes. Eventually she comes back and she is utterly wasted. The alcohol must have caught up with her. An announcement comes through that the train is being terminated early at the next stop and a replacement bus service will take us the rest of the way. So we're waiting for the bus and this girl just starts puking her guts up, like really throwing up something rotten. She's falling asleep, passing out, and I'm having real trouble keeping her awake. The driver takes one look at her and is like, hell no, not getting on. I'm begging the train official guy, but his hands are tied as it's the driver's decision. I explain that I don't even know the girl, but my phone's dead, and I've got no money to get back to my hotel. He laughs and sympathizes, tells me to cut my losses and get with another chick who's nearby. Now, there's no chance in hell I'm leaving this girl drunk as F, passing out in the dead of night. But even if I was that low to do such a thing, her friend had added me on Facebook, so no chance. Taxi driver tells us no chance as well, but I eventually find one who will take us but warns of a hefty fine if she throws up again. We're in this taxi going down country roads. Ev knows where in the pitch black, her passed out on my lap, and I'm just staring out the window, thinking, WTF am I doing? I should have gone back to the hotel and smoked a joint. WTF is this situation? I don't even know where we're going. All I managed to get from her was that she lived next to the hospital. Anyway, she comes around once we arrive near to the hospital, and I make her pay for the taxi. She sobers up pretty good at this point, and we end up having some really good S, which has her neighbors thumping on the walls to get us to shut up. I leave in the morning and she goes off to work somehow. Oh, something I EF'd out was that this girl was obsessed with dinosaurs. She was wearing a dino hoodie and kept making dino noises. Her room was filled to the brim with dinosaur stuff. She was really odd, but she wanted to F my brains out, and I'm a sucker for flattery. Regret it all. Story 31. Slept with a fellow camp counselor at summer camp. We had met the year before when I was a counselor in training and she was a camper. We didn't really hit it off, but we became friends then. We were both of age, her 19, me 21, so it wasn't some super weird thing. A few weeks later, we were both camping at the country fair, and that's when we first started to hit it off. But never did anything, because who wants to F in a camper at the county fair in July in southern Michigan? Too hot and muggy for that, Shah. But anyways, after that, we talked for a bit and tried to make something happen, until she ghosted me a few weeks later. Flash forward to the next year, and we are now both counselors at the same summer camp. Now, this summer camp was at the county fairgrounds and didn't have bunkhouses or anything to sleep in, so the people who opted to stay overnight were in tents or RVs. The second to last night of camp, she invites me back to her RV. We're hanging out in there with her younger siblings. Now her RV was one of the nicer ones, with air conditioning and multiple rooms. So the siblings fall asleep at one end of the RV watching a movie, and that's when her and I go to the bedroom. We start to fool around a bit, but stop when she asks if I have a condom. Being that I didn't plan on this, I didn't bring any. So she just says, well then be sure to pull out, before she get up on top of me. We do most of the deed and she finishes before me. At this point it's super late, I'm still locked and loaded, and she's falling asleep next to me. So I slip out of her RV and walk back to mine where I take care of myself. And in that moment of post-nut clarity, I think I should plan ahead better. Next morning I head back over to her RV to wake her up for breakfast, and I see some dudes standing outside the RV as well. We talk for a moment and I find out that he's been dating this chick for like 2 months, and he's off work now to hang out with her for the day. Dude's bigger than me, and I don't feel like fighting anyone, so I just walk away not saying a word. The S was mediocre, she was kind of a B, and it was clear she was cheating on people left and right. I regretted doing anything with her after that, and promptly got tested for anything. Story 32. When I was 34, after breaking up with my girlfriend, I moved to another state where I didn't know a single person. I lived in a pretty small apartment building, but for the first 5 months I was there, I didn't make any friends. One Saturday, the really cute lady from the ground floor, we had said hello a couple times, I lived on the 4th floor, knocks on my door and invites me to her party that night. I told her I might. Later, after hearing all the fun, I decided, what the hell, I'll go check it out. She's really drunk by the time I get there and flirting with me pretty hard. As I said, just broke up with girlfriend, been there about 5 months, was kind of depressed, haven't jacked off the whole time, okay, maybe once or twice, and my balls were full. I have a couple drinks, I let my inhibitions down, I let her drag me into a bedroom. She starts giving me the most amazing job. I see in less than 10 seconds. She tries to stop it, but it goes all over her face, her hair, her shirt, like a massive amount. She has to walk all the way through this party to get to a bathroom on the other side of the apartment to clean herself up. Everyone was laughing so hard at her. Don't necessarily regret it, but I did feel bad for her walk of shame. Story 33. When I was 23, I was going on a date with this girl. My cousin called me and asked if I was still going and told me to stop by his apartment before I went. I showed up and he said, "Hey, I got some boner pills if you want them. I take them when my old lady is pissed off at me and ruin her week. She doesn't know I have these, so hurry up and take them." I reluctantly stuck out my hand and he dropped 2 blue bombers in my hand. And he said, "Hurry." So I fing-popped both and he looked at me wide-eyed and said, "Did you just take both of those?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He replied, "You were only supposed to take half of one." To which I said, "Why the F didn't you tell me that? When someone puts drugs in your hand, you take them?" He said, "And that logic is why your life is the way it is now. When's your date?" I was already late, so he wished me luck and laughed his ass off as I walked out the door. At Buffalo Wild Wings, the World Cup was on and I hate soccer. But she touched my shoulder and asked if I was ready to leave. Just that shoulder touch almost made me pass out because all my brain blood was in my boner, and I had to sit there for 3 hours and pretend like Paraguay or some sheet was my favorite team because I had a goddamn freight train trying to bust through my Levi's. Story 34. Probably attempting to maintain a relationship with a drug-addled schizophrenic Amazon. 6 foot, about 200 fairly muscular pounds. To be fair, I was 17, she was 16. And stupid, and she had a massive, magnificent round ass you could crack a 2x4 on, and arguably the second nicest vagina I've ever encountered. 17-year-old me thought it was great. She lived in a shitty fourplex that was essentially a 24/7 party house. My teenage self was stoked. Ready access to booze, herb, recreational powders, and AES within walking distance of my folks' house. Well, between waking up to her straddling my chest and pointing an ice pick at me. "You know what you did?" I cheated on her in a dream, apparently. Being threatened by her meth-addicted biker dad. Being cajoled into assisting her in the procurement of certain refined, poppy-derived botanical extracts. And finally being dumped in favor of the dope man. It was about 2 of the most idiotic years of my life. To be fair, my friends warned me not to date her. She briefly got clean and started taking her meds a few years down the line. She reached out to me on FB and I added her, but made sure to put distance between us. Unfortunately, the stability wouldn't last. I watched as she spiraled back down. Her posts became increasingly rambling and incoherent until one day they stopped altogether. This was in 2008, mind you. Since then, news of her filters through mutual friends. Last I knew, she had a couple of possession beefs, 3 kids she's not allowed contact with, and some gnarly scars courtesy of her proclivity for fighting. Age is unkind to most of us, me in particular, but hard living has done a number on her. Once upon a time, as in when we were teenagers, she was a model. Local designers loved the chance to rebel against the trend of waifish blondes with a thick, punkish lady with wild hair and tats. She was never much for academics, but she never had much trouble making money. She was vivacious, an absolute riot to be around, and a great friend, at least until she started slipping. Nowadays, I'm not entirely certain she's still alive. I worked on my self-esteem, quit ingesting anything that came in powdered form as a pill or in a vial. Then I learned to trade and reconnected with the woman I missed a connection with in favor of dating the Amazon. I wish her well, or failing that, peace. Story 35. I was in Universal Studios with my family and went back to the room to shower before heading over to meet my family at the Rainforest Cafe. I decided to take a bath in the big tub in the room and beat my meat. I turned the jets on and decided it'd be a great idea to see what they felt like on my asshole. Well, within 5 seconds, the jet shot a half-gallon of water up my ass and I was freaking out. I immediately got the urge to shh and ran to the toilet. Shoe water began to explode out of my ass, and every time I thought it was over, the feeling came back, and you guessed it. More shoe water rocketing out. I had 20 minds to get to the restaurant for the reservation, and by the time I was cleansed out, only 10 minutes remained. I scrambled out of the hotel room, panicking I did damage to my insides. Caught a boat right before it left for the park the restaurant was at, and made it there 10 minutes late to my family all sitting at the table. They asked what took so long, and I lied, saying I missed the boat and had to wait for the next. Dinner was good, though. Story 36. In high school, there was this girl that had a major crush on me. It was like stalker-level crush. She would get short and pissy with me in class if she's seen me talking to other girls. She would make passes at me constantly, which I politely declined every time. And she even somehow got my home number and would call constantly. Luckily, my mom would answer and tell her that I had just left or whatever. Well, she came at me hard for a long time and eventually started to get the hint. She would stop trying to sit right next to me in TGE classes we had together, stopped calling my home phone. This was before cell phones, at least for me, etc. One night I'd been drinking and was horny as F, so I hit her up. She came over, I ended up fing her, and I would most definitely place that choice in the top 10 of biggest mistakes I've ever made. I seen that night as a booty call, but she saw it as the door opening to our relationship. The constant phone calls started again. The jealousy was 10 times worse. It became 10 times worse than it had been before, and it got to the point where I almost ended up getting a restraining order on her. I ended up riding out the last few months of senior year and moved shortly after. She kept trying to refriend me after I deleted her off Facebook and kept messaging me on Messenger for quite a while, but she slowly gave up. Horrible. My tip: don't booty call your stalker. Story 37. Not funny like some of these, but I bought a chastity cage off of Amazon for my D. Saw it in some of the BDSM that I like. I Google around because it seems dangerous, but every forum and message board and result I found, nobody seemed to have any injuries besides it not being good to not jizz for months at a time or something. Well, it was a tight fit, took a decent bit of lube, and it hurt a little when I tried to get hard. But that's kind of the point, right? Not so much. I was having a blast and was horny as hell, but the denial is the point. Well, 2.5 days into it, I wake up with maybe the worst pain in my life. I had a nocturnal erection, but the blood was trapped in my D in the cage. I was writhing and had to get it off. So I pulled it off and it hurt so bad, but I was scared and panicking and didn't want to have my D die of oxygen loss or something. But it fed up some of the veins when I forced that blood back down like a Chinese finger trap. I often wonder if I had put ice on it and slowed down if everything would be okay. My D now has symptoms that are most similar to Peyronie's disease. Google it, it's interesting. I have ED problems, my D is crooked. That cage left fing scar tissue in a ring maybe 1/4 of the way down my D. It's embarrassing as hell. I made up a dumb lie my dog had jumped up on the couch and his foot fractured my D. The better lie was that I was using a cock ring and couldn't get it off. I've only ever found one person who this happened to in some distant country. I'm mid-20s and S-drive is sometimes just not there. I do take Cialis and had a good time with my ex-GF. She said loved my D and that it was bigger than other partners and the curve hit her just right. But it's very difficult knowing I permanently maimed myself like this. Like I said, only one other dude I found that it happened to. And he and I became pen pals basically, and it helps to have someone else who understands. TLDR Spring for the expensive $300 chastity cage, urology bills and pentoxify line, and Cialis is much more expensive. And this will probably be for the rest of my life. Story 38. All right, so we decided to drive to Acuna, Mexico from San Antonio, about 2.5 hours. It was Saturday night, the day before Easter Sunday. It was 2002 range. My buddy is from Del Rio and knew his way around. We drive into Mexico, visit many bars getting hammered, then decide to visit the legendary Boys Town. This essentially a whorehouse bar. We go to the strip club there and continue the party. There's about 7 of us all guys. It was a sausage fest. The women are nothing special, but eventually they hype up a special guest. I swear to God, the special guest was 70 years old. She was doing her thing, and we are cracking up drinking the free, yes, free tequila shots. While she was performing, there is a vendor selling stuff to the customers. He comes to us and he is selling handmade model sailboats. Seriously, he shows me one he called Vikingos. He wanted like $20. It was impressively made, no question. I am a salesman and like to haggle, plus I am drunk. I end up buying 2 of them for $10, American = 1 billion pesos then. Next thing we know, a local is talking to us and we are having a good time. He invites us to explore more of the area. We end up in the whorehouse lobby. He's apparently the pimp or something. He's explaining the way it works. We drunkenly ask around to see who is game for some action. Our Russian buddy, whose name is Kirill, was gung-ho. We all called him Drago because, you know, Rocky. Drago wanted a BJ. I said, I'll buy you a BJ, but we get to pick the girl. Me and my buddy Robert go with the pimp to the lineup. There must have been 30 women of all ages. Truly, no young ones, but there was no age cap. Of course, in our drunken state, we think, haha, find the worst one here. To our surprise, multiple women did not want to only give a BJ, they wanted S or nothing. This blew my mind. We find some middle-aged woman who looks like the maid from Family Guy. She is down. They go off into these little huts/motel to do their thing while we get more hammered with the truly entertaining pimp guy. Drago comes back and bez that he was forced to wear 2 condoms for a BJ. That would take forever. We leave, pile into our cars, and head back for the border 10 mins away. We took a wrong turn on a one-way and immediately turn around. Next thing we know, cops fly up and stop us. We all know broken Spanish but didn't understand the cops well. We figure out they are saying $100 no problem. We say we don't have it since we're all broke-ass college students. They pull Robert out and F with him and come back. They tell us he's drunk, pay us $100 or jail. We scrounge up about $65 and they let us go. This $65 was every dime we had. We cleaned the ashtray out and everything. We get to the Mexican side of the US border and there is a toll of about $5. We simply didn't have it. We are stuck. Robert gets to the toll booth. We try to explain. They were not having it. So he says F it, hits the gas and hauls ass. The tool booth threw a stapler at us and we fly across the bridge. We get to US side, hit the brakes and act cool. We are all pissed drunk, but Border Patrol didn't stop us. So in all, my buddy got a BJ from a whore in Mexico on Easter Sunday. We got held up by crooked cops and had to run the border. I had my sailboat for about 15 years and was damn proud of it. A few years ago, my wife made me get rid of it. She knew the story. I have never been to Mexico since.